Hey everybody. So we've talked now kind of about like some of the vocabulary that we're looking for when we're writing equations from straight up from words and putting them into symbols. So let's look at some examples, and you can keep in mind some of the some of the key words we're looking for. All right, and I'll point those out as we go. So let's take a look at our first example, and our first example is one more than three times a number is seven. So how I like to start with these always, and how I encourage this when I'm doing live in-person learning with somebody, is first of all, that is going to be our equal sign. All right, and it says it is 7, so it is going to be 7. All right, so equals 7. So we got that kind of out of the way. So now let's look at the rest of it. So let's take a look at this first of all. I apologize for all the bouncing in and out. One more than. Well, one more than is going to be, 1 plus, and then we have 3 times a number. All right, 3 times a number. Okay, so there's two things in that 3 times a number that we have to parse out. The first thing is we've got this 3 times, right? So we've got 3 times this whole thing right here. I shouldn't have boxed it separately. 3 times. Well, that would be basically 3 times something. And then the next part tells you, well, times what? And it says times a number. And remember, a number is, we're talking about, that's our variable, right? That's our variable, is our number. So we can use n. So we're going to go through and we're going to put that in. We'll go 1 times, actually, let me put that in to keep that in the colors we're using. So 3 and then n. So you've got 1 plus 3n equals 7. And if we write this all in one normal color, 1 plus 3n equals 7. 1 more than, 1 plus 3 times a number is 7. So we are all good. And that is our finished product right there. All right, look at another one. 7 less than 1/4 of a number is -1. On these subtraction ones, I think it's a good idea to go backwards and to really think about this, because order can really screw you up. When you're doing addition and multiplication, if you go 3 plus x, well, that's the same as writing x plus 3, right? But writing 3 minus x is not the same as writing x minus 3. So it's really important when we're doing these that we're very mindful of the order that the multiplication goes in. So let's kind of highlight sort of what's important on this first of all. So we got 7 less than. So that's going to be one of two things. It's either going to be 7 minus, or it's going to be something minus 7. So it's going to be one of those two. All right, the next thing we got is we have 1/4 of a number. All right, well, the 1/4 is going to be 1/4, and then a number is going to be our variable. So that's going to be that. So we've got that much. We've got 1/4 n. All right, and then the other way to write that is we can write 1/4 n as n over 4, because remember we said 1/4 is the same as dividing by 4. So you could write it either way. Let's just, for right now, let's just leave it like this. Okay, and then we've got the easy part of this, which is -1. Well, our is -1 is going to be equals -1. Okay, so we're doing good. We're getting this sort of in place. Now, let's look at this as a whole thing. Let's look at the 7 less than 1/4 of a number. All right, so if I said 7 less than 10, right? If I did that, if I said, what's 7 less than 10? Think about that in your head. You would say, well, you'd start with 10, and then you take 7 away from it. It's 3, right? That's how most of you would think about it. If I would say 7 less than the number of apples that John has, and John has 15 apples, you would go, well, 15 minus 7, and you'd get 8. So the version of this that we want to use, remember we wrote 2 down, is we want to use this -7. So that means that this is going to go in front. So that's where you have to be really careful with these. So we're going to go 1/4 n, I guess I used the wrong color, purple, but oh well. 1/4 n -7 equals -1. And we are in a good position here to go. Right? All right, let's look at this one. The quotient of a number and 5 less 10 is 3. All right, so this one, we can break this apart. So let's do this first part. The quotient of a number and 5, okay? The quotient of a number. Well, quotient is going to be a division problem. So we're going to have some kind of a fraction of a number and 5. And if they write it that way, just go in order. So a number would be n, and then 5 and 5. So that's how you write that. The quotient of a number and 5. Next part, less 10. Less 10. Well, less 10 just means -10. So less 10, and then our end part is 3, is equals, and then 3. So our whole number sentence here, right, written in symbols, is n divided by 5 minus 10 equals 3. Some of you will be tempted to write this as n divided by 5 minus 10. Or sorry, see, I screwed that up because I can't even do it that way because it just messes with my brain. All right, some of you would be tempted to do it and leave that, write it like this, but we don't want that. That's not good. We use fractions in algebra, and that's where I want to get you guys to. All right, so last problem here. The product, all right, product means we've got a multiplication problem of a number. All right, so I'm just going to use one color from here on out. A number, so n, and 4. So the product of these. So that means I'm multiplying those. So you could go, well, that's n times 4. But if you're doing this with some elegance here and understanding how algebra works, you should hopefully realize that your coefficient, your number, always goes in front. And then your variable just goes right there, and you don't need the times sign there. That's just not necessary, right? So you don't have that. So this would be a bad way to write it. This would be the correct way to write it. So the product of a number and 4 increased by, well, that's plus. All right, increased means you're moving it up by 16. So you just bring that number down. Is, that's easy, that's my equal sign, -2. So hopefully you're seeing that if you just sort of break these down piece by piece, that you can do these. And a lot of times if you're reading it and you're just kind of like, and it's too much, we'll just start with the is. Find where your is and get that down first, and then say, okay, well, I know this -2 is going to go over here. And then once you start getting going, a lot of times it's easy just to keep that up. All right, thanks for watching, guys.